Hello everyone and welcome back to Busy Pro Fast Wellness. Today we're diving into a conversation I've been genuinely intrigued about for some time. The carnivore diet has been stirring up debates, praise and plenty of skepticism along the way. And our guest, Casey Krauter, isn't just dabbling in it. He's been living it for 5 years. And as a flexitarian myself, I'm curious, I'm fascinated really, to hear how he makes this actually work and what lessons even vegetarians and vegans can take away from his approach. So, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'll,
absolutely.
I'll, I'll try and dig in and see what the vegetarians and vegans can pull from this.
Of course, of course.
That's yeah, that might be a tough one, but I think we can, find some common ground a little bit.
I
So
think well, hopefully we can. I've got most of my friends seem to be in that camp. So, but anyway, Casey, before we sort of proceed with the questions, the meat of the interview, excuse the
yeah,
pun, but,
yeah,
would you like to give us just a brief rundown of where you are at the moment and what your life is like at the moment?
yeah. So I live in sunny, beautiful Colorado, in the United States. I live on the Front Range, so a little bit north of Denver area. And it's beautiful here, like 300 days of sunshine, unlike
Wow.
maybe where you're located. And so yeah, I have a wife and two young daughters, and we pretty much live outside as much as we can. As you can tell, I'm
Yeah,
pretty tan, so I soak up the sun like it's my job.
absolutely.
And so, yeah, we're living here. I'm currently training for a marathon, and just just trying to, approach life as ancestrally as we can.
Yeah,
Um, and really, the carnivore diet has played into that quite a bit. And so, we can kind of get into that and some of the other things, other than just changing to a carnivore diet
okay.
that I've incorporated in my life, and what I would recommend other people to kind of consider.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
you've just touched on a couple of things that I would like to explore a little bit later on about the marathon side, etc. And
sure.
the fact that you live outside all the time, that's just brilliant. I know that that's so important now for vitamin D. But for me at the moment, I guess one of the things that I would love to know about is what first drew you to try it, and what were the
Sure.
first changes that you noticed in your energy, your focus, and your health that convinced you to stick with this diet?
Yeah. So, oh, I mean, like anybody else's story, it's a really long evolution of changes. And so, I grew up, and we call it the standard American diet, but it's kind of the standard global diet at this point.
Okay.
Ultra processed foods, uh, you know, um, sweet sugary cereals. I wish I grew up in the UK with like an English breakfast every morning. That would have been nice, but um,
That's a bit of a
no,
myth, actually.
but it's a myth.
No, yeah. I mean, there are very few people. That's the sort of treat people don't. It's more cereal, sugar-based cereals these days, and
Yeah,
toast and
yeah,
marmalade.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very carb heavy, sugar driven childhood, and so all through childhood I had headaches and migraines and stomach issues, and I was on antibiotics for periods of time and just was getting sick quite frequently. And then that progressed through college, and then I met my wife, and she was a nurse, but she had kind of a functional medicine sort of disposition, and she loved to learn, and so she just was. And even now, she's a podcast junkie. She just
Okay.
consumes podcasts. But she introduced me to utilizing more of a healthy diet for things like weight loss. And I was up to close to 200 pounds, which is not that, not bad, but I'm 5'9", and to give you perspective, right now I'm 145. So
Okay.
I my progression from college, and so I'm in my late 30s now, so
Yeah.
maybe 20 years now.
You look good,
Uh,
man. You look good.
oh, thank you.
You're doing
And
good.
I've lost weight over that time, but I would say, we started out doing something called a Whole 30. I don't know if
Mm.
you've heard of this program where
No,
you do
I
a 30
haven't
day,
really. No,
yeah,
no.
you do a 30-day protocol of, you essentially take out sugar and dairy, and you do just whole foods, really. So it's also considered kind of a paleo diet. So you
Okay.
take out grains, you take out dairy, you take out sugar, and you take out seed oils. And
Right. Okay.
so it's really just vegetables, fruit, and meat. That's what I was eating. We did a Whole 30, which is a 30-day period, and we felt great. And so we did that, but we were eating a lot of veggies and not really understanding the role of meat in that, or the role of protein.
Okay.
And so, we were still experiencing some gastrointestinal problems because we were eating huge salads, a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fiber, and so it was still a carb heavy diet for us. And so I was still feeling cravey. I was wanting to have more sugary, like fruit and stuff.
Mm.
I kept on craving that kind of stuff. So I'd go overboard still. And then we shifted into a ketogenic diet. So if you've ever heard of a keto diet or
Yeah.
anything like that, that's kind of a buzz diet right now, as well. And what that is a high fat, moderate protein, low carb diet. So it's similar to an Atkins type diet.
Right. Okay.
And so we were kind of tracking our macros, eating a low carb and high fat. So I was eating a lot more butter, adding a lot more olive oil to things, and keeping my carbs down below like 20 grams.
Right.
So that's like, to give you perspective, that's like one avocado a day for your carb
Wow.
carb intake,
Thanks. That's really useful. Thank you for that. When you say 20 grams, my sort of mind goes blank a little bit, but
Yeah,
that's
like
really
what does
useful.
that look like? Yeah, it's like, 10 almonds, half of a avocado, and um maybe some cheese and leafy greens, keeping it very low. That would be kind of, you'd add those into some of your meals.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what that would look like. And then you'd have a bit more protein and a higher fat. And so we did that for many years, and I started really losing weight, feeling really good. And what I noticed doing that diet, and with a ketogenic diet, it's also they use it for therapeutic purposes as well,
Mm.
for things like Alzheimer's, dementia. They also use it for schizophrenia patients,
Wow.
because really loading up the body with that high saturated fat, the good fat for you, really feeds your brain what it's craving. And so people with mental diseases or disorders, it really starts to reverse those types of diseases, and so they use that as a therapy a lot of times in functional medicine.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Um, and so, yeah, ketogenic diet, I would recommend, as a first step for some folks, if you're like, hey, I want to really start exploring stuff, or like this kind of diet progression, I would say a ketogenic diet it's a great first step to really explore.
Mm.
And really the idea behind it is that you're going into ketosis. And so that is a state um, in your body where your body is breaking down the fat that you're consuming and the fat that's in your body
Yeah.
to produce fuel. So instead of being carb fueled or glucose fueled,
Right.
which most people are,
Yeah, I understand.
um, it switches them over to a fat-fueled state.
Okay.
And so, if you think about, a car that runs on, uh, um, unleaded gas,
Yeah.
if you have a very dirty gas compared to a very clean, high octane gas,
Mm.
those two fuels, they do the same thing, but they're not as efficient. And so one is more efficient than the other. And, um, that's what ketones and fat fueled do for your body. And your brain can actually utilize the ketones very well, and it gets you almost to a state where you're super focused, you're hyper focused, you're not very hungry, your cravings for carbohydrates start going down, and you can just perform on such a high, like optimized um, level that you haven't before. And so that's what I was starting to experience with a ketogenic diet.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry,
and
can I ask a question there? Because how
yeah,
long did it
please.
take you to make that transformation to from when you noticed that you had obviously some health issues, etc., and then you got to the point that you are on the ketogenic before you went on to full
Yeah.
carnivore?
Well, so after the Whole30, we switched to a paleo diet, which is just fruits, veggies, meat.
Yeah.
Those three things. And then like we would add in olive oil or butter or avocado oil for the fats. So we were doing that for a period of time, feeling bloated from kind of fiber in the stomach, still.
How long though? You know.
Oh, probably 3 years.
Oh, okay, quite a period of time. Yeah.
three
Okay.
3 years of doing that, and then switching over to a ketogenic diet and really experiencing a lot more energy, less bloating, less feeling kind of sluggish
Mm.
because of the carb heavy nature of, even just fruits and veggies. They are carbohydrates with fiber. It gets into your colon and it kind of weighs you down. And a lot of
Right.
people don't really realize that. But then, so I switched to keto, did that for 4 to 5 years, I would say, with just a very low carb diet. I still kept carbs in there. And that was kind of my Achilles heel, I would
Okay.
say, is this low level of carbohydrate consumption. And so, I started hearing about, through different podcasts and just different influencers on social media and things, because we followed a lot of ketogenic social influencers
Right.
who are promoting the ketogenic diet, teaching it, explaining tips and tricks and how to do it. And then a few of them were like, "Hey, you can, if it's not really working for you, like completely, if you don't feel fully optimized, there is this other thing called the carnivore diet, where it's a complete
Mm.
elimination of carbohydrates out of your diet."
Yeah.
And so I got curious about that because, in my mind, I'm thinking, how can you how can you live on just meat? I mean, that
Mm.
just doesn't make sense, because we're taught that, oh, you need to eat your veggies. You need to
Exactly.
have all the. And I think this is a question that you posed to me.
Yeah, no,
Um,
for sure. That I mean, you're going to probably cover that now, which is
yeah,
something I really genuinely would like to know the answer to on
yeah,
that. And many people will know that because we are taught to follow a balanced diet, which does have, we know what the food pyramid is, and it's
right,
obviously that's the greater part is the fruits, legumes, the vegetables, etc.
right,
on the bottom of
right,
that pyramid. And
yeah.
you're suggesting obviously that wouldn't be that. It's almost like topping that pyramid upside down.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's taking. It's. I would say, yeah. Even on a carnivore diet, it's even more extreme than that. But yeah, flipping it over to where you want you want the most calories out of your fat consumption, which is and really focusing on saturated fat even, which has been kind of demonized
Yes, it has very
by
much.
the health industry. The smallest amount of intake in your diet are the sugars and the processed oils and the grains even. Even grains as the bottom one, that's the biggest, like you need to eat the most grains,
Yeah.
and I would not agree with that. And I think that there's a lot of literature and research done that says that grains are actually not good for you.
Yeah.
And
That, that
also
that
fiber.
literature is not in the mainstream though, is it?
No, no, it's not. It's not. And
Yeah.
um, I think so. Some people that I began following, and I'll drop some names here so your audience can maybe
Okay.
explore some of these. Dr. Sean Baker, he's a prolific carnivore diet proponent. Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Anthony Chafee,
Okay.
he's a big one in this space as well, and Dr. Ken Berry. So I would say those three are, if people want to start exploring their content,
Yeah.
it's fantastic, and it will lead people down a similar path to what I found and what I took.
I guess
But
there's one sort of burning question I have. I think the people that would want to pursue that avenue would need to feel that they have something missing in their own health. Maybe they have issues or something, because if you're in great health, or you believe that you are psychologically and in terms of your physique or
yeah,
physically, then you probably won't have that need to go down that route, would you? I mean, I have a balanced diet. I'm a flexitarian by nature. I eat very little meat and a bit of fish here, but so I
yeah,
don't, and I feel pretty good. I think I do.
yeah,
So maybe it wouldn't be for
yeah,
everybody, but it might be for people that have some sort of issues, or they want to, as you say,
right.
lose weight, or just feel more focused and feel better with themselves physically.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say if you want to optimize your health and your body, I would say trying out a ketogenic or carnivore diet for a period of time and
mm,
see, how do you feel? Because here's kind of the sad reality is that most people, they kind of have an underlying malaise or underlying fatigue that they don't realize that they have until you go off a lot of these things and you're like, I didn't know I could feel this good.
right.
Um, and then there's also a lot of natural indicators that most people don't have the education or the knowledge on.
Mm,
And so that would be things like joint pain and trouble sleeping. Um, if your skin burns,
mm,
that's another indication.
okay.
And that's a huge indication because most people are like, well, you go out in the sun, you're going to get burned. You got to
Mm,
wear sunscreen. Let me tell you, I live in Colorado. I'm at 5,000 feet above sea level. And I go run just about every single morning, about 10 miles, and I wear no sunscreen, zero sunscreen. I wear no sunglasses. I wear no hat, nothing. I go shirtless, and the sun is beating on me, but I
mm,
don't burn. I don't burn at all. And what some of the reasons why is that we as humans are naturally built to be outside in the sun.
right.
And
Okay.
so when we do things like adding on sunscreen um, and covering us up and wearing sunglasses even, um, your eyes are built to take in sunlight and create certain hormones in your body
Mm,
that get directed out to your skin and protect your skin from sun damage
yeah.
based on the amount of light that's coming through your eyes. So it says, this is a bright and sunny day. We need to make sure your skin is prepped for that. And that's how, so this kind of ties into um, touching on like ancestral living that I mentioned
Yeah.
before.
Okay.
Um, and so there are a lot of indicators as humans that I think have been kind of dismissed in our in the education of how life should operate with the natural world. And so we do things that sort of break that cycle with nature, sunscreen, sunglasses, the food that we eat.
Yeah.
And so
I wonder why that is. I wonder what the real sort of is there some sort of nefarious motive, particularly at play here? That if that were the case, that obviously we're being prescribed something completely different than that model of the ancestral living. And the reason I mention that is because of what happened. You know, I've always been somebody to go along and think, well, that's what's being prescribed. I'll believe those doctors. The majority will say that. That's what the mainstream narrative will say. So therefore, that probably is the truth. But I suppose I've been slightly tarnished, from the COVID years. I'm sorry to bring that in up to it because obviously, in my opinion, things were not straightforward, and during that time with the masks, with the lockdowns, with the forced vaccinations, etc.
yeah,
And during that time, I thought, oh, there is a kind of push to give us a one size fits all, which I wasn't really aware of. So I'm just,
yeah,
I love the idea of having an open mind. I think that's my bottom line here. It's
yeah,
really important that we all look at all sides of the argument before,
yeah,
what applies, because there is no such thing as a one size fits all. That might
right,
be really fantastic. It works brilliantly for you, might not work for other people, but
yeah,
it shouldn't be somebody say, "Oh, that's rubbish. Dismiss that."
yeah,
So we need
yeah,
we need to have that open mindedness. And I feel very
yeah.
passionate about that.
And to my discredit, I'm an evangelist about the carnivore diet just because in my life and the people that I've seen uh, do it, there has been such amazing, beneficial, and dramatic change for the better. And so I'm just like, I think, in my opinion, everybody should try it for a period of time. And
But hold it. What about if they genuinely don't like meat or they can't stand the idea of meat? That could be
yeah,
problematic.
it could be, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of tie in, like, okay, what do you say to a vegan or a vegetarian about that? I would say if you're a vegetarian, um, so my main thing would be this. Most people don't get enough protein in their diet.
Okay.
Most people, protein is it's a nutrient, but it's a macronutrient. You need a lot of it.
Yeah.
And most people are deficient in it. So if you were to actually test folks and say, okay, do you hit the threshold for what, you know, for a thriving, healthy body
Mm.
from a protein standpoint, they don't hit that. And so I would say you need protein to thrive and survive.
Okay.
Okay. And so for folks that are vegetarian, I would say eat eggs. Eat as many eggs as you can, get your protein up. If
Yeah.
that's something that you consume on your vegetarian diet,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's kind of the definition of, you know, you don't eat meat, but you can eat some eggs, I think. I know vegan is no animal product, period. Um, for me, that's a really hard diet stance to take because I know for a fact that there are vitamin deficiencies that
Mm.
if you choose to be vegan, um, you will experience. And the only way that you can get those vitamins is by taking a supplement that's derived from an animal. So,
Right.
um, I think the ethical argument is it doesn't really
Mm.
stand up in a court of law. um, but that's somebody's personal choice. I have seen long-term veganism not really be beneficial for someone's long-term health.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I can't really think of anybody particularly who shows an amazing caliber of health who's a vegan. I'm just trying, and I do know vegans, but they tend to sort of just about get by. They're normally way underweight, very sort of skinny, and I,
yeah,
and not necessarily that strong. But I'm sure there'll be multitudes of vegans out there probably would be, no, no, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
just,
And you know
it's
what?
very
This is my
anecdotal.
opinion. Yeah, it's my opinion, my perspective,
Yeah.
sort of what I've seen. I don't think that you get the amount of nutrients. And so let's switch over to like, okay, let's talk about meat only. Do you get all the nutrients that you need from a meat only diet? And the answer is yes. Okay. So,
Well,
and
that flies in the sort of face. That defies, if you any of the great athletes, the endurance athletes, so they need to fuel up on the carbs, don't they? That's the
right,
idea. I mean, that's always been the case.
right,
It's been
right.
pushed, and I mean, there is something. I mean, I had to read up a little bit about this, about the glycogen levels, etc. They need to be
Sure.
stocked up. So,
Well, they're constantly hitting goos and gels,
yeah,
these glucose gels during their, marathon races. And let me tell you, last year I did my first marathon and I did it completely fasted and zero carbohydrate
completely fasted.
consumption. Completely fasted. My last meal was at 6 p.m. the night before, and I only drank water and water with electrolytes and salt. So like a pink Himalayan sea salt that has
Yeah.
kind of minerals in it,
Okay.
and that's all I took for the whole race. And so I ran. I didn't bonk. I didn't hit a wall. I didn't hit a
That's
lack of
amazing.
energy at a certain point.
That's
And
amazing because you always hit the wall. I mean, I've done 5 marathons, London 5 times, and you always hit the wall at about 20. Well, about 3 of those I had to hit the wall and did
yeah,
20 miles. Yeah.
yeah. So I never hit a wall. It was constant energy. Obviously, you wane down, but it's never this like this this glucose. This you almost fall into a pit of lack of glucose. Your
Yeah.
body has stopped being fueled, and you need to hit something. That was never the case. And I trained fasted and zero carb the whole time too.
Mm.
And so, I was just prepared for it. I ran it under 4 hours, which was
Oh,
my goal for my
very
first
good for a first
marathon.
marathon. Very good. Yeah.
And so I'm training for my second one. It's at the end of September. I'm doing the same thing. And but yeah, back to, does meat give you everything you need? And um, so the answer is yes. And let me explain that a little bit.
Okay.
So there's muscle meat and there's organ meat, and then there's things like eggs and roe, and then also saturated animal fat.
Okay.
And so if you're consuming all of those, and people would say, okay, this is considered like nose to tail
Yeah.
consumption of an animal. You're eating all the parts that you can consume. And then there's also, if you make bone broth, that's also another source of minerals and nutrients,
Right.
uh, calcium and different things like that. And so as somebody who's completely carnivore, I focus on meat and eggs are my main staples, and then I'll incorporate things like liver and heart
Yeah.
for organ meat, and that gives you different micronutrients that help to kind of optimize and fuel your body.
Yeah.
Um, and the idea is that you're consuming meat and a product from an animal that has eaten a vegetarian diet. And so instead of you eating the veggies, the animal ate them for you, and now you're eating the
Okay. I never really
now
thought
you're
about it
eating
like
the
that. I mean,
yeah.
there's obviously the argument that you don't really know sometimes. There's been some problems with hormones, etc. So you might not always know the source, and it has to be organic or grass fed in order to supposedly guarantee that you're getting the best quality. But no, I never really thought about the fact that they have eaten the
Well,
vegetables, etc.
if you kind of listen to the research and the people who are sort of talking about the carnivore diet, the animals that are probably the best to consume from a nutrient standpoint are ruminant animals. So that would be cows, lamb,
Mm.
uh, deer, elk, bison, things that have multiple stomachs. And what that does is they consume the grasses and the greens,
Mm.
um, and they are able to break it down through multiple enzymatic processes through multiple different
Okay.
stomachs and turn that into their meat. I mean, they grow from that. Our stomachs are high in acid. They're not meant to break down fibrous materials. They're meant to consume meat and break down meat in a very bioavailable way.
Yeah.
Meaning you consume it, it goes right into your body. You have minimal waste.
Mm.
Yeah, and we can address the whole fiber, the idea of like you need fiber. That's a myth in my opinion. And in the research, so it's not really my opinion, it's kind of science. But yeah, so if you focus on ruminant animal consumption, so beef, that's
Yeah.
that's a big part of my diet, is just beef. um what specifically cows and sheep can do, even if you feed them grains, they have a way of really filtering a lot of toxins and things out, just by the fact that they're constantly churning, and the enzymes in their stomach are able to really um, clean up what they're consuming and turn it into meat. Um, and so I would say for ruminant animal meat consumption, you don't have to be as concerned about, is this grain fed, is this grass fed, is
Mm.
how clean is this?
Yeah.
It's going to be it will just in general, it will be cleaner. I would say the ones that you really want to focus on getting pastured, or um, what would it be called?
Organic.
Organic. Yeah, that
Grass-fed.
meat would be like pork
Yeah.
or chicken,
Okay.
you know, because they're monogastric animals. They eat, goes into their stomach, it gets right into their system pretty quickly.
Right. Okay. Great. Great distinctions. I didn't know anything about this, so
Yeah,
that's useful to know. That really is. I love learning this stuff.
yeah, and so it's you can get all the nutrients that you need.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
My
and
mum's
I'm
gonna my
kind of
mum's gonna love listening to you because whenever I go and see her in Cornwall in England, she knows that I don't eat much meat and she always feels a bit guilty. I said, "No, mum, no, don't worry. I'm not a vegetarian." And then we eat meat every night, and I'm like, "I'm cool with that. That's fine because it's
yeah.
it's once a year and I see her." But she is somebody who's a great proponent of a meat diet, so she'll enjoy
Nice.
this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think so. If somebody wants to start out and try this, I would say, get excited about having eggs and bacon for breakfast, because I mean, that is the staple for me. I eat 6 eggs and 2 strips of bacon for breakfast,
What?
and
What?
then
Sorry, 6 eggs in one go.
yeah, six
Oh
eggs,
gosh.
2 strips of bacon, and then my lunch is, so I'll eat that at like 6 a.m.
Mm.
And then I'll kind of go about my morning, and then I'll eat another big meal of about a pound of beef, either that's like in a burger,
Yeah.
or kind of a ground beef that has been browned.
But the burger
Uh,
wouldn't have it wouldn't be in bread though, would it? Because that's carbs.
no, no bread, just the meat,
Just a meat.
just the
Yeah.
meat.
Yeah.
Salt, some salt, maybe, yeah, just salted meat,
Okay.
and then I'll add 2 more eggs to that. So
Wow.
so I'm up to 8 eggs now. And then later in the afternoon, kind of getting towards evening, I'll have um, I'll have 4 more eggs. Let me think. Yep, 4 more eggs, and maybe some liver or organ meat or some bone broth, um, and I'll eat some animal fat that we render down and we kind of freeze it into pucks.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'll cut up like a chunk of like frozen. It's called tallow. It's beef fat is called tallow.
Okay.
I'll cut off a chunk of that and just pop it in my mouth and eat it because it to me it tastes really good and it supplements my meal, and it
Wow.
has a lot of really good micronutrients too. So like
Yeah.
stearic acid is really good. That's an animal fat, and yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
that's kind of that's my
incredible.
day.
That is so. I mean, did you obviously you liked meat before, but what about offal or the organ meats as you call them? Were you okay with that? I mean, I was a great fan of liver when I was a student, for example, because it was very cheap, and I would
Yeah,
always go for the lamb's liver as opposed to the pig's liver. So I'd eat
yeah,
that in those days, and I can eat liver if it's placed in front of me. I wouldn't be too comfortable. I would with heart or with brain, for example. But how were you in the past? Were you okay with that offal organ meat?
no. I
Right.
mean, I wouldn't have ever touched. I mean, I wouldn't have touched any of this before I kind of started small,
Mm,
and then I grew into really enjoying the taste of it. Um, and I think what was tied to that is the fact that when you start cleaning up your diet in this way, you sort of crave these micronutrients that you never really had or you never really tasted before.
mm,
So I started just eating meat and eggs, and I didn't really do any organ meat. And then my wife, she said, "Hey, try this, chicken liver." So she made up some chicken liver,
mm,
and I tasted it, and it was just like, man, this it tastes like something that I need.
yeah.
It tastes it's so good, kind of this irony, high iron type
Yeah.
taste. Um, and it's like every once in a while I'll get a real craving, and
Yeah.
I think what that is there's something in your body that is needing that micronutrient.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love organ meat. I haven't tried a lot of the different stuff.
Yeah.
I've only had liver and heart, um, and then like different um, bird organs. So like gizzard, and
Yeah. Okay.
there's another one.
I can't help you on that one, I'm afraid. Sorry.
I don't know, but yeah, I really genuinely like organ meat though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess after a while, it's like anything. Your body will tell you what you need because you'll have that craving for it. I suppose if you can wean yourself off, because you mentioned earlier on that you had a sort of typical American diet, and
hmm
and you mentioned also that you would have liked to have obviously been brought up maybe in Britain, which is not so heavy on that type of diet, thinking that we were more inclined probably to go for a full English breakfast, which isn't really the case. Um, it's kind of that's just promoted as a bit of tourism, really.
yeah,
I think there might be a few that would disagree with me on that. And it's always
yeah,
great to have a great full English breakfast from time to time, and many people would agree on that. But you mentioned the process. So, for example, if you'd had a healthier diet, though, for example, if you'd been brought up in, I live in Spain and France, and it's a very Mediterranean sort of diet. We're not going to be eating processed food. I don't eat any processed foods.
yeah,
We always cook from fresh, and we don't buy any packet stuff or anything like that. So
sure,
maybe those issues that you have mentioned in your health, they might not have been a case, and you might not have made that transition because you would have been
yeah,
okay with
yeah.
yourself, but maybe not as healthy as you actually are now. Because you are kind of the paragon of health, aren't you now? I guess, really.
Yes, I would agree with what you're saying. I think the traditional European diets of France, Italy, Spain, where
Yeah.
they're eating, unprocessed from the land, artisan foods that, the tradition of making that food has been passed down. They're using very clean ingredients.
Mm,
I think that those people, and in a lot of those areas are like, you have centurions or, centennial.
Yeah.
folks that are
Certainly.
living up to 100 years or
We've
more.
got somebody just opposite from where I live, Madame Mondange. She's 103, and she's still
Yeah,
walking around and still reading
yeah.
every day. Yeah.
And so I think that the end of life diseases are really tied to, um, especially here in America, tied to the increase of sugar and the increase of these toxic seed oils,
Yeah.
and then also the GMO and the glyphosate issue.
Absolutely, Casey. I couldn't agree with you more. I could not
And
agree, and I'm so sort of passionate about this because some of my family live in the States, so I see what's going on. I go over there from time to time,
yeah,
and it's just dreadful what they're eating and the way that
yeah,
they live, and the dependency on sugar, for example, is just
yeah.
massive. So yeah, no, I get where you're coming
And
from on that.
and something that I say a lot is, when you go into a carnivore diet, it literally takes you out of the whole industrial cycle
Mm.
that's making money off of you. Okay. And so hear me out.
Yeah,
There
go
is
for it.
there's this cycle of what you consume from the food companies
Yeah,
makes you sick. And so then you give your money to a doctor.
yeah,
They prescribe medicine. So then you're giving your money to the pharmaceutical company,
yeah.
and the pharmaceuticals actually do more harm than good. And so you're back into the medical
Yeah,
establishment,
I know, I
and
know.
you're giving them money. And then, but the proliferation is you're still consuming these toxic things that are
Yeah,
keeping you in this cycle.
absolutely.
And so you're losing your life, you're losing your health, you're losing your money.
Mm.
You're tied into this system that is completely corrupt, because what underlyingly, and I don't think any single doctor would say this is what they promote or proliferate, um, but the idea is that if they can keep you sick,
Yeah,
they don't want you to die, but if you can stay sick, you can be a money making machine for the rest of your life for them. And
yeah.
so
That state of affairs is absolutely disgusting. And I know what it's like. I know how the farmer works, and I know about the fact that it's best. The model is to keep you as sick as possible for as long as possible. And,
yeah,
you know, and it's endemic within the system in the United States. I mean, I know from my folks who live out there, they're always going for medical appointments. It's like medical appointment here, they're constantly. And I say, well, why are you doing that? My mum doesn't. My mum's 80 years of age. She goes to the doctors once a year for her bloods, like most people would do in Europe, just to
yeah,
check. Whereas it's like
yeah,
there, no, it's like every couple of weeks they're off getting this. Oh, it's prevention, Alan. It's prevention. What do you mean it's prevention? It's because the insurance companies. You've got the sickest nation in the world,
yeah,
and you pay the highest amount for medical care. How the heck does that work?
yeah,
How do you possibly tally that up? You
yeah.
can't.
It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah,
And the sad part is the people who choose to live in a healthy way. Take my family for example. I still have to pay for that,
yeah,
even though I'm not utilizing it. And my tax dollars are going to companies like Novo Nordisk
yeah,
that are pumping out Ozempic, and I'm like, I, I will never take that. I eat meat, and
yeah,
I stay extremely fit.
yeah.
And I'd rather give my money to like subsidize regenerative farming.
Yeah,
Like, give my
absolutely.
money to the farmers so that
Yeah.
they can make my meat for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you know,
the farmers are getting a hard time all over the world. I mean, that's going on in Britain now. They're trying to slowly close farms down. But anyway, that we're going off on a tangent a little bit there. But
yeah,
yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. Thankfully, in Europe, we don't have that. We don't have to. We just our social security contributions, whatever they are, very small, will go into that. We get free healthcare, and we can use
yeah,
it as and when we wish.
Yeah.
without having to pay exorbitant amounts of money to keep that insurance. And then you have your, I don't know what it's called in the States, when you have a certain amount that you can use and things, which is just, can you reach that amount? There's a name for it. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, keep on what you're doing. It's obviously working for you very well.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is.
So I would say if somebody's curious about it, obviously anybody that is following you, they can reach out to me.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'll put your all your details in the show notes for sure. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they just want to message me on social media or send me an email, that's easy too. And I love to help coach people on what this looks like. And a lot of times I help them kind of step through the evolution of it as well. It's not a, hey, let's go cold turkey. Unless somebody is like, hey, I'm at the end of my rope. I need to do something dramatic. I'm the type of person that's extreme and dramatic. So I'm like, let's just, cut it off and start clean. And that's worked for me. Because I can't moderate anything. And so, they can reach out to me, but I would say, hey, give yourself 30 days to try it and see what you feel, see what you think. Most people at the end of that 30-day period will say, I feel so good, I don't ever want to stop this.
Yeah.
And that has just been my
there will be
experience.
exceptions to that, won't there? Because some people might have some sort of health conditions or something, and maybe a carnivore diet isn't the ideal fit for them.
Sure.
Possibly.
Yeah. I guess judge your own situation,
Yeah.
right? But I would say that the main thing that I would encourage people and the people that are listening is make sure you're getting animal protein and animal fat in your diet. You will get the nutrients that you need. And I think you'll start feeling better. You'll see things like your sleep is getting improved. Your energy feels much better. You have more clarity. Your joints and things start operating a bit better.
Yeah.
And then cut down or cut out sugar as much as you can. I mean, that is
for sure.
it's technically a drug.
Yeah. I agree.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there is also the question of affordability, because I think you've maybe encapsulated with that to some extent with what you said. There is a way, because if people, I mean, you said that you don't have to go down the organic or the grass-fed for like beef, but probably you would do that if it was chicken. These are two examples that you've given, because I suppose to always have the organic or the grass-fed could be an expense, couldn't it? And a lot of people wouldn't be able to afford that. So is that something that you have any suggestions on, or any ways around that?
Yeah, I think so. So I mentioned, if you have the resources and the means to afford organic grass-fed meat and do everything that way, I would say that's like the highest echelon of what you can do.
Okay.
But the reason why I mention ruminant animals, you don't have to be as particular on that, is that you can just go to the market and get beef and try and find the lowest cost that you can. That's what we do. Literally, and some people will be like, oh my gosh, you go to Walmart? Yeah, I go to Walmart, and I don't know if you have Walmarts in UK.
I know what Walmarts are, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have them, no, but yeah.
But I'll get a big 10-pound tube of beef, and it's so silly when you walk out the store with this big tube of beef. It's about this long. And but that, to keep costs low, that's what I do. And it's about $3 to $3.50 per pound of US dollars, and that keeps my beef consumption low. And then we'll get a big 5 dozen crate of eggs for our family,
Yeah.
and we'll get multiples of those. And so I would say beef and eggs, at least for our family, we're trying to find the cheapest, most economical
Yeah.
um, that we can find. And then for chicken and pork, we try and get the cleanest that we can find,
Yeah. Okay.
just
No,
for those.
that's good, sensible advice. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
glad that that was reiterated, just so that people have got some idea of which sort of journey to go down for
yeah.
us.
And
And obviously
to
you've got
give you an
the yeah.
idea, I eat about 12 eggs and a pound of beef and maybe a little bit more things throughout my day, and it's less than $10
Yeah.
if you
Okay.
add it all together for what I consume in a day,
Yeah.
for what I can find, you know.
Yeah. Of course.
So
Yeah. Great. And obviously, there's one thing that we haven't really addressed. It's just, and I'm sure that people will be wondering about that. What about the vitamins or the antioxidants that you would get from fruit? Because
yeah,
you need your vitamin C content. You can get your vitamin D outside, but what about that? How would you address the vitamin C? Because that's very important, obviously.
yeah. I think you can get vitamin C in different micronutrients if you are incorporating organ meat and bone broth,
Yeah.
uh, and animal saturated animal fats into your diet as well. I would direct people towards Dr. Anthony Chafee. That's Chaffee.
Yeah. Good.
And he talks a lot about plant micronutrients and antioxidants, in the fact that a lot of the forms of those nutrients, they're contained in a way that your body can't completely access.
Mm.
And so that's the idea behind the fact that, like, if you go for a ruminant animal, they have eaten those items, and their structure and their body is built to break those down to
Right.
create the meat that you need. And so there's also other things about plants and fruit that they can contain kind of toxins that protect the plant from your own consumption. So Dr. Anthony Chafee, he puts it this way. He says plants are trying to kill you because they can't run away from you like animals can, but they can produce toxins that stop you from eating the rest of the plant,
Yeah.
if you run into it. And so even things like spinach have different toxins called oxalates and lectins that can get into your cells and start wreaking havoc on a small scale, that most people don't really understand that side of the plant kind of toxicology of plants,
No, no.
which is a whole study.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's so enlightening to find out all that stuff about different plants, etc. And there is a question which I have regarding that supplements. That was it. I knew there was something. It just came into my head now as you were speaking. Supplementation, I suppose, if you are worried about not quite getting that, or you're not going to go down the organ meat route at this point where you would have those vitamins, maybe supplementation. Is that something that you would do? I mean, I take supplements just as a precaution, just to make sure. Do you also do that from time to time?
Yeah, so I do kind of basic, more electrolyte supplementation.
Okay.
So things like magnesium, sodium, um, what's the other ones? Um, that's not coming.
Iron, maybe, I don't know. It's not really the same.
No, I get quite a bit of iron.
Oh, yeah, of course you do. You're overflowing
But
with iron.
yeah, so things that are typically contained in kind of a mineral salt
Yeah.
that you would buy from the store.
Yeah.
So I'll consume a glass of water with a teaspoon of mineral salt just mixed into that.
I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start doing that with that Himalayan salt you mentioned earlier on, because we've always
Yeah,
got that.
yeah,
And I've never
that,
ever done that ever.
yeah.
'Cause-
Well, most doctors would say keep your sodium down, you know. But it's when you start cutting out all the processed crap that we eat, which contains very high amounts of sodium,
yeah,
um, and when you combine it with a carbohydrate, the function of a carbohydrate is to retain water inside of your cells.
right.
Um, and so, you know, if you've ever eaten a carb-heavy meal, you've probably felt bloated and
Yeah,
you've seen it in your face.
yeah, for
That's
sure.
water, that's water retention. So your
Mm,
cells are sucking up water and there's something going on where they're trying to essentially protect themselves
mm,
and process and detox from what you just ate,
right.
essentially.
Okay.
And so, you know, supplementation, I do a lot of magnesium supplementation and then salt electrolyte balancing just because I'm very active.
Yeah,
And if I don't keep a good balance of that, I'll get kind of muscle cramps and things like that.
yeah,
But for the most part, I don't do anything. I don't do anything else. I'm not on any other pharmaceuticals or
yeah.
anything.
Okay,
So
okay, okay. That's really useful. And if someone is curious about the whole thing about going down the carnivore route, however light it might be, do you have, is there one sort of small step or experiment that could inspire them to make a tiny change?
sure, yeah. Um, well, I think if you did something for like a day, you wouldn't see much of a progress. But I think, like I said before, if you take a 30-day period and um, maybe just try increasing your protein um, up to a point that is, I would say, therapeutic or beneficial to your body.
Yeah.
And what I like to say is the amount of grams of protein you should consume is up to what your body weight is in pounds. So if you know, you guys are in kilos,
Yeah.
but if you convert it into pounds, so for me, I'm 145. I fluctuate between 145 and up to 155. You know, if I'm gaining muscle or not.
Sorry,
Um,
what would that be in kilos for the European listeners? I'm 71, 72 kilos, more or less.
let's see,
You're doing a conversion now.
155 divided by 2.225. Is that right?
It looks like you might be a
70,
late
70,
70. Okay,
70
yeah.
kilos.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
So yeah, I would say, you know, take your kilos, convert it into pounds, just to get your number, just to get the
Mm,
number that you are looking at. Just because for me, for the conversion into the amount of grams that you should eat.
yeah,
Um, so if I say I want to hit about 160 grams of protein
yeah,
per day. So that for me, that gives me the amount of building blocks that I need to maintain good muscle and gain muscle,
yeah.
and have good energy and good repair and recovery.
Mm,
Uh, I would say increasing your protein content is vital, and then also, like I said, start cutting out sugar.
yeah,
Sugar is probably the main thing, and seed oils.
yeah.
Those two will wreak havoc.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so,
no, for sure. And I agree with you on that one. Absolutely,
yeah,
100%. Great, Casey. I think we've covered so much, and you're obviously a mine of information on this topic that comes shining through the way you're
yeah,
speaking about it, because you seem to have all the all the knowledge there, and you've obviously experienced it and done all the research yourself.
yeah,
With doctors, it's always great if you've got people up there that obviously do know what they're talking about.
yeah,
That's although not all doctors do, but these ones obviously you've done your research, etc. So
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's really great, and I've enjoyed speaking so much about this. Is before we sign off, obviously I will be dropping information about your Instagram handle in the show notes, And anything else that you would care to give to me by email or whatever, I will put into the show notes. But is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we sign off?
Oh man, there's so many things that I could mention.
Okay.
You know, I have two small daughters now, and so we've raised our kids to eat this way too. They're predominantly meat based, and so we feed them the meat that me and my wife feed them, or me and my wife eat. We all eat the same.
Yeah.
And then the only veggies and fruit are what we grow in our garden. So it might be a squash that we make over the course of a couple days and feed that to them, or it might be a few apples that are local that we picked from a local tree that we give to them. And so we have just seen our kids develop in a way that's leaps and bounds above their peers that are getting sugar, that are getting cereal puffs as babies, and all these things and formula that has a lot of soy and just seed oils in it. Those kinds of things are detrimental to the development of a young child as they're growing, especially with their gut. And so I would say if you feel like it's too late for you, it's not too late for your kids too. So try it for you, but also we want the next generation to thrive, and we don't want them to struggle with obesity and diabetes early,
which they do now,
which is happening. Which we're seeing, and
in the UK it's the same. It's totally,
and even things like autism and people are seeing Alzheimer's in kids and Parkinson's in kids too, where it's just like there's something happening with the medical aspect and also the food aspect, and those two things, when they come together in a small developing child, it can have detrimental effects. And so
I hear you, brother. I'm going to use a bit of an Americanism there, but I'm with you on that. Totally.
But let me tell you from my personal experience with my kids. My daughter, she's 4. She learned how to ride a bike at 3. She's writing and spelling words and sentences and reading now. She's only 4, and it's just the sponge aspect is so strong when their mind is clear, when their body is ready to go, when they're fueled properly with things that are not toxic to them, And so, I do this for my family. I do it for myself, so I feel good, but I also I'm thinking about the next generation.
Yeah, the next generation is so important. And everything you said, certainly, excuse the pun again, but it's definitely food for thought, without a doubt. And I'm so pleased that we've managed to cover all this. And there is an absolute important reason to see the next generation so that we can change this as much as possible. That society changes, in light of new knowledge, which unfortunately a lot of it will not get out, but if it can get out of the pores from some sources from time to time. I
mean, your podcast, little ways, the people, the world around you, that's what I'm trying to change. The people that I touch, the people I communicate with, the people that I can influence around me. I'm not trying to change the world, just the people around me.
Yeah, great. So, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Casey. I'm going to sign off now and drop all those notes. It's been an absolutely inspiring conversation and so useful, and you shed so much light on the possibilities of changing the diets and stuff like that. So that's really great. Thank you. I shall bid you farewell. Okay.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Alan.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.